Hello, today I'm going to be talking to you about a strategy called the learning log. This can be found in the Teaching, Reading, and Social Studies manual. This is a post-learning strategy, and it's also a strategy that can involve both reading and writing. Why use this strategy? Because it's important to give students an opportunity to process what they've learned from their readings. Learning is a constructive process, and students can't be expected to be able to use information if they aren't given time to process this information and think about it and really make it their own. This strategy is also helpful because it gives students an opportunity to see how they've grown throughout the year. This is because, as you will see later, this strategy gives students the opportunity to self-reflect by looking back on what they've previously written. Okay, so when we use this strategy, after an assigned reading or other learning experience, like a lecture for example, it could be used with any kind of text, but it may be more appropriate for simpler text or for maybe students with more advanced brain comprehension, because it is pretty simple. You just give students a topic and they write about it. So students who need more help with scaffolding their processing of reading assignments might need more help than this strategy provides. Okay, so the context of today's situation. So we're going to splice in some modeling with our explanation of this strategy. The context of this situation is an 11th grade U.S. history class, beginning a unit on desegregation. Students are going to read an article about segregated problems that take place in the South today. This is to prime their prior knowledge, so the topic that they'll be drawing on will then be asking them to think about both this article that they read and what they know about segregation. So this, in this case, kind of being used as kind of a prior knowledge activity and a processing activity at the same time. Okay, so step one in this process is to create a writing prompt that asks students to reflect or think about a reading assignment or some other type of learning that they've had. Here you want to make sure that it's very clear to the students what they're expected to write about. For example, an assignment like this might be confused with a diary, and if you're strictly looking for their processing of factual information or critical thinking, you may want to make sure they know that they're supposed to be thinking about and writing about what they've learned in class, and not just kind of their feelings about what they've been reading about or learning about. So that's very important with step number one. Step number two allows students to think time to consider their responses. We know to do this when we're asking them questions in lecture, and it applies for reading assignments too, so factor that in when you're planning out the timing for your learning log activity. Step three gives students time to write about the topic. Pretty obvious. Here, remember to make sure to think over just what your expectations are. Again, those need to be made clear in step one, and give students an amount of time that is appropriate for what you're expecting them to write. Okay, step four, check over students' learning logs. This is beneficial for a number of reasons. It gives us an opportunity to see if there are any misunderstandings or confusion. So this can be helpful. For example, in the example you're seeing us model here, this is an opportunity for the teacher to find out if there are any other misunderstandings she needs to deal with as she's teaching this unit on desegregation. Another thing is also that if we are taking the time to collect them, we do need to make sure that we read them to make sure that on the off chance that no one has written anything having to deal with themselves or anyone else being in any sort of danger, so we have a responsibility to be on the watch out for those sort of issues. So there's another good reason to make sure that we look over these carefully. There are a couple different ways that you can check students' logs. You can collect them, or you can look them over in class, kind of spot checking them as they're being written. Finally, step 5 is to make time in class on a regular basis for students to read their learning log entries and reflect on how their ideas have changed as they've learned more throughout the year. For example, in this video, the student wrote this log at the beginning of a unit, so at the end of the unit it would be a good idea to have the student go back and see what all they've learned throughout the unit. Thank you, and have a good day.
Okay, class, take out the article you read last night for homework on segregated proms. Today we're going to do, we're going to add to our learning log, and your question for this one is, how does this article relate to what you already know about desegregation? So just start to think that over as I pass off the papers. Here you go, Heath. And I just want you to think about it for a second before you start writing. Now that you've thought about it, you can start writing your response. Heath, how's it going?
Okay.
Good. Those are some really great thoughts. Good job. Okay, now that class is over, if you guys can just turn in your learning logs for me, and I'll just read over them tonight to make sure that you guys are on the right track and understanding the concepts, and then I'll return them tomorrow. Have a good day. I want you to go ahead and look through your old learning logs and see how you've grown, or maybe things that you think differently now that you've learned more throughout the semester, and just check for your understanding in those areas.